Hey, what is up, everyone? It is Rich. All right, happy Halloween. I couldn't let Halloween go by without doing another spooky book. So I remembered early in my collecting days, one of my favorite horror comics that I had was this Deadman, Love and Death by Mike Barron and Kelly Jones. And I'll tell you what, it's really beautiful. It's beautifully drawn. I actually, my good friend James, what is up, James? I hope you're doing well. He recommended Red Rain. I looked at Red Rain and then I looked at this, and it was a no brainer. This was where I was going. The Red Rain Batman Dracula story is good. This, I think, is cooler and more creepy. So, this is what I'm going with. This has a real horror feel. The other book I didn't feel did. So, yeah, let's get into this. We're just going to look at it out of order. The art is beautiful, and a few pages into it, it really wouldn't matter if we went sequentially or not. So, all the pages are a treat. And if we go through this fast enough, we can even look at some of issue 2. We'll see how it goes. I do kind of need to watch the clock. I need to do a long video for Patreon. So, all right, let's get to this. Happy Halloween. This is the cover. You know, Kelley is just incredible with lighting, as we all know. His you know, feathering and stuff like that on the pages is just always gorgeous, and he really just has a great he's a great illustrator and a great comic book artist. We'll see him bounce back and forth between things that are probably somewhat photo referenced and some things that aren't. And depending on the pieces, sometimes it blends in pretty seamlessly, and other times it'll look a little more realistic at times. We'll see how it goes. I didn't see a ton of that. This is really, really beautifully drawn, and like the ruffles on her nightgown, or whatever you want to call this thing, is really cool. Look at the position of his foot, too. Man, that's so nice. So, alright, let's get into this. I know Neil Adams has done some really, really incredible Deadman work. I'm not that familiar with it, but I am curious to see it. But, man, look at the anatomy on Deadman in this panel. It is so wild. It was interesting. James and I were chatting back and forth a little bit this morning, and he's getting into doing more and more sequentials, but I don't think he's done a ton. Less than 100 pages, I'll say. And he was like, man, he's like, I need to get like 1,000 crappy pages out of myself before I'm going to get to like where they're better. And I was telling him that I kind of think that the number is more around 300 to 400 pages is like a pretty good target of where it takes to shake off just the unfamiliarity with doing panel to panel work. But you can see here Kelley, he's done enough work that it's starting to look real natural. His style is showing through. It looks confident, and it's dynamic. It's tough to have it all right out of the gate, but if you slug it out long enough, you'll get there. You know, that's the key. So an inspirational takeaway for that is, you know, you know, if in your mind you go, okay, well, gee, I need to do 200 or 300 pages before I'm going to shake off any sort of, you know, amateurness, then you just get down to business and know that the first 60 to 100 pages that you do, you know, you could try your hardest. It's probably not going to be grand slams. You might have a few moments, maybe many moments, but yeah, it'll ultimately settle down as you move along. This is all really, really nice. She's crazy looking. She's almost like the circus fat lady, which I'm sure that's what it is. They're all probably part of a thing. I would love to have Kelly Jones on the show and do an interview with him. It would be fun. Like I had mentioned yesterday, I've got Eric Canetti coming back on. We're actually going to look at Mobius together live next week in the evening. So look forward to that. But yeah, what I'd like to do with these artists is have them come on and we do one video where we actually go over their work. So it would be fun to have Kelly Jones come on and we look at you know, a chunk of his artwork, and he talks about the process and things that he thinks worked out well and maybe things he struggled with. It's a, you know, puts you a little bit in the hot seat, but I think it's probably fun too, and it's done in a light way. And then have them pick a book that we go through, and we have a second hookup where we have fun and we look at art and just talk about something that they love or something that maybe influenced them. I thought that's a neat little thing to do. The goat-faced boy. He's got a sexy lady in his cargo car. The Colby Circus. I don't know why, but stuff like this, it reminds me of the first sort of weird, I don't know, it felt more indie than a lot of the stuff that I was buying, was Mike Allred did a book called The Geek, and it was, I think, about a circus geek or someone that was sort of one of these type of characters. It was weird. I actually looked it up online and really couldn't find a reference to it. I thought that was a little bit strange, but I know for a fact that it was something that I had seen. It's like you kind of doubt yourself when you Google it and you're like, okay, I don't see any reference to this comic book at all, but it was Mike Allred, and it was called The Geek, and I think it was Vertigo, probably in like 95 or 96. This is great lighting on these faces, man. It's interesting because I don't use real heavy lighting for my comic book stuff, but I did in one panel recently, and it's neat, but it's interesting because, boy, I'll tell you what, it changes the look of your stuff really fast, and if you apply it wrong and don't have it consistent, it can really create some weird patterns on the faces. Ultimately got it. The first stab at it, I had it done, and it just didn't look right to me. I had too much line work, you know, like where like, say here he's got shadows, but like if there was more shadows or less, and then you had rendering in spots, sometimes it can look weird, where like the pattern just doesn't seem to fit the light source. So I ended up pulling in more shadows and it settled down. It's scary though, especially if you're doing it in ink, because you're like, oh gosh, if I cover this up and it doesn't work, you know, obviously you could do it in Clip Studio or Photoshop. This is nice. His cans are funny. He's real good with clothes. I like the way that he just folds on clothes. This is cool. The colors on this I liked a little tiny bit better than the Red Rain too. The Red Rain was very colorful. This seemed to have a more muted palette, which kind of felt a little more creepy. This is some interesting panels. So this is like I guess a poster, and this is interesting. He's got it real high, full bleed, but there's still some interesting crops and little inset things like that. It worked pretty well. I guess it's on the TV. Yeah, it's interesting. It worked out pretty good. Oh, it's a nice upper panel. Man, it's cool. It's interesting too because this is a DC book and there's actually some nudity here. I mean, quite a bit actually. That's surprising. I guess back in the day the Vertigo books could have full frontal nudity. I don't think they would do that now. A shadowed bat penis made a big ruckus. It's like, I'm calling you on the bat phone, Batman. Your clothes better be on. It's kind of funny too, only because I know Lee, like the artist that drew it, so there's something funny about it. It's like he will forever be known as that guy. This is a weird shot. I get that it's sort of down a little bit of a hill, but it is kind of funny. It's an interesting choice. I always loved Gustav Klimt did some paintings like this, and I know David Cho has too, but like just the trees, like these kind of trees. This is a nice upper panel. I actually like this quite a bit. One of the things I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to do a pretty long video for Patreon, is one of the people had asked about drawing cars, and so I'm going to show them some ideas for drawing cars. I learned it cobbling it together, but I would definitely say Scott Robertson, just the little bit that I've taken from Scott Robertson definitely is part of my little pie chart of how I would approach a vehicle. I don't know, that he has a lot of terminology that he uses that I can never remember. Like, he talks about like axes and things like that. I mean, I get what he means, but yeah, like if you hear him talk about it, it sounds like he's talking another language at times. But yeah, I recommended this before, but I recently bought he has a Gumroad, and he had a How to Draw Motorcycles a tutorial that was like $5 or $7, so I bought it. And it wasn't so much that I was interested in drawing motorcycles. In fact, I was more interested in learning how to draw guns better, like creating sci-fi guns and things like that. But look, a motorcycle is a very complicated thing with a lot of weird shapes to draw, and I figured if I could take away anything from a motorcycle video, I would apply to any sort of vehicle or little spaceship or anything like that. Yeah, Kitty, you agree? I agree too. Yeah, I know, I know. You could even draw cars with that information, right? So anyway, but I would recommend it. It's actually really good. I think he shows you how to draw 3 different bikes, and yeah, it'll get you there. Any of his stuff is good though. Scott Robertson, he's got books and gnomons and the whole thing. Highest recommendation, and some free stuff on YouTube as well. So look him up. This is nice. Just sexy figure. Just full-figured gal. This is nice too. This almost has a little bit of the Mignola vibe that we were talking about with the like Fufford and the Grey Mauser era, little Gotham by Gaslamp kind of thing. This is cool. Excuse me for yawning. I just got back from like an hour walk, so my body is like starting to relax. There's a lot of romance in this. I was funny as I actually said that to James. I said I think it might be too romantic. I didn't mean that like a viewable way, but I just meant that I wasn't sure if it was going to be too lovey-dovey and not creepy enough. Little zipatone. Oh man, look at that. That is so cool. I would also highly, highly recommend, if you're a huge Kelley Jones fan and you don't have this, you can look around and get it for a pretty decent price. Graffiti did one of those big artist editions of his Batman work, like a gallery edition, I think they call it. It is excellent, and it's probably one of my favorite artist editions that I have. It's really, really good. It's huge. It is so many pages. And it's just unbelievable work. It's fantastic, and I think I got mine for maybe 80, somewhere around there. You just gotta kind of be patient, and people get rid of those books because they're quite big, and so yeah, what ends up happening is you know, they just don't want to store them anymore, and they flip them. So, and it's a pretty what would you call it, like it's a narrow demographic that collect those books because of the size, and then also, you know, they really appeal to artists. So, if you can find the right person, you can get a good deal. And some of them are very expensive. If they've been out of print for a while, then you're gonna spend a small fortune on one. I had 2 copies of the Wally Wood first edition just on accident. I had ordered one, and the guy flaked on me, and so when I was trying to get it before it was completely sold out, I ended up getting it twice from 2 different companies because I didn't want to risk them flaking on me. There's a lot of online companies that will say that they have stuff or that they're ordering it, and then they just never return your email, and eventually will refund you. But yeah, then you don't get the book. It sucked. It was like, it had come out and I was seeing people online get it, and I kept going like, when are they going to send it? And I finally contacted them, and they were just like out of stock and da-da-da-da-da, and I was like, seriously? It was like, well, were you going to tell me? Because this thing is selling out everywhere. This is really cool. Yeah, he crushed it on this. This is so nice. He's so creepy. The contrast between his body and hers is really, really cool. He's so emaciated and so, like, you know, muscle and bone, and then she's so much more shapely and round and with the ruffles and all that. It's very, very cool. All these, like, little knobby bones on him. His lips, too, are crazy. Oh, wow. That's a very cool shot. That's nice too. This would be really, like, it would be a challenging script to draw, but you would really learn a lot doing it, that's for sure. He's really good. Look at this. That's awesome. Her head back like that. It's pretty cool. It would be tough to draw. His face got away from him just a little bit. Upshot, man. It'll get you. See, this is interesting, too. This is drifts a little bit more cartoony. Oh, man, that's cool. Yeah, I remember early in my collection when I would flip through it and I would find these books because the covers really stood out. I was always remembered it, and if I was slimming down my collection, I always put this in the keeper pile. I was like, "There's no way I'm getting rid of this." Anything that's unique, I'll usually hold on to if I'm thinning the herd. You know, if it's a one of a kind type book, then I want to keep it. Yeah, these are great. It's really, really cool. I don't know if Kelley ever made little maquettes or little clay statues or anything of any of his, like if you were going to have to draw Deadman's face a bunch of times, if you created like a little clay mold of it, it might help you light it. He probably didn't, but he might have. This is cool. Wow. Man, he had a lot of fun on this page. This is all cool. Like slipping into a vat of acid. Hey, like the muck monster. The fingertips here are great. Man, that is so cool. I'm actually finishing a cover right now, and the last thing that I need to do is light the character's costume. It's a black costume with a few, and there's like details on it, but it is tricky. It's like I realized that I need to go in, actually define all the edges of the costume, and then light it. And it was like I was kind of trying to do the two steps at the same time, and it was getting it just wasn't working for me. It would be like if he had like a shoulder pad. So let me see if I can do this. You know, if this, I'm on cap lock, so I was like, why is there no, that's not a weird tool. But say if this was a shoulder pad of some sort, and then this came down, and maybe there was a pleat here, and then this was part of an armband, and this was part of an armband, and then he had a glove that he wore, something along the lines of that. And so these are all different pieces. But yeah, when you light it, you know what I mean. You want to pick a light source, like so. Say if the light is coming here, well, you can make it simple, and like a cylinder would be, this side would be dark. Now there could be refractive light if you're going to decide that there's a wall here bouncing light back. Then there could be a little bit of a gap there where the light is coming back around, and then this is kind of like a sphere, so you can sort of imagine that this all would be dark. And then if there's highlights from anywhere else, they might do things like this. You know what I mean? But you have to figure it out. And then how would this part be like? Well, okay, well, if there's a light source from here, it might cast a little bit of a shadow down. But there's a light source from here, so this might be lit too. You see what I'm saying? Then so this is shadow, this is shadow, this is shadow, this is dark. And you could even have a little bit of bounce light here. So that's how you like light stuff. But yeah, if you don't have all these edges, and the thing is well, the light might hit this edge and maybe it creates like a little bit of a thing like that. But yeah, if you don't work out the structure first and then create the light source, it can get weird. And I sort of, like I said, I was mixing at least two steps kind of all at once, whereas like I sketched it in and sort of lit it then, but I really wasn't thinking about a light source. So I was, he's pointing at me, he's saying, Rich, that's called shenanigans. You're trying to get away with shenanigans. And I'm like, no, I swear I was going to do it the right way. I just, I was excited. And he's like, no. These are the conversations that go on in my head. But hopefully that helps people, because yeah, it's like draw what you need to draw first, and you can always remove detail or put in shadow. But if you don't know what you're gonna light over, then you're gonna have problems until you have memorized the stuff. I don't personally feel like I'm there yet, so do it with structure and then light. And again, you can use an eraser, you know, do it in pencil first. I'm finishing the pencils. This is great. This reminds me of the beginning of the Haunted Mansion ride. Ready? Put your little carts here. You know what I'm talking about if you've ever been on it. And you sit here. Look, we're going to go on the ride. And you go around the corner and the doors open. This has got to be it. And then these are the paintings on the wall. This is right when you get on the ride. How cool is that? I'm doing this with a mouse and a pad. I'm not on anything fancy. That is really, really cool. And then this is like a nod to Wrightson, right? Man, that is great. I'm way into that. Those two rides actually are a big influence on my art. Haunted Mansion and the Pirates of the Caribbean. This is a funny shot. This too. You go, Kelley Jones. Look at that. I would bet money you probably wouldn't be able to do this now, at least in a DC comic. That is so cool, man. The way that he does his bones on this is just crazy cool. So I think we're just going to do this first issue, and then I'm going to get onto the Patreon video. This will be good. This is a nice taste of this book. There's a second book. It's two, like 60 pagers, so you definitely want to check them out and grab them. Check your local comic book shop or online dealer. God dang, this is so detailed. Look at that. That's so crazy. His hips. It's interesting to see this with like a little bit of meat on his bones, like his ass. It's funny. He's still got like a firm touche. This is a nice little shot right here. Oh man, look at that. That's so cool. Told you this was a good one. This is very Halloweeny. You know what? Let's look at the second book. I can't stop. You know me, guys. Armand the Great. You only have Halloween 2021. So this was one hell of a year, right? Holy shit. It's a nice house. It's interesting. It's really kind of cool to see. I'm trying to picture the living quarters inside based on all these different things. It's okay, so a person would stand about that high. This looks a little out of proportion. It's not terrible, but this would, I think, be a little bit bigger, unless that's really far down the hill. Let's see. I'd just like to get an idea. This room feels a little bit small. I'm not 100% sure what's going on here, but I think a person standing in this would be like, I mean, it does have a vaulted ceiling, like a little bit of an A-frame, but yeah, it feels a little tiny bit off. Again, if you took this say 5'10" person and started putting them in some of these rooms, it would be a little weird. So, not a huge deal, but just, it's, you know, you do kind of want to think of stuff like that. I figure one person might be this tall. All right, we'll say this tall. Yeah, some of this feels a little off. But no one would notice it. It's not a bad drawing. It's just trying to help artists that are learning. You want to watch out for stuff like that, and then trust your eye. So, you know, there's wiggle room in comics. It's not a big deal. It's a very cool drawn house regardless. I don't really understand the colors on this particular page, but it is what it is. Man, his body is crazy. It's just so interesting how narrow he makes this, and then how chunky he makes this. It's really cool. God, he does this so good. That is so kick-ass. This too. Man, that's awesome. The planes here are just killer on this foot. And his hands are really cool too. It's a little Egon Schiele. Just a little bit. Some of this is like, if you know Schiele's work. This too. It's very, very wild. I wonder if he's a fan of Egon Schiele. I mean, I don't think that he wouldn't be, but what I mean is I wonder if it was any sort of influence on the work. Okay, we can kind of scoot through some of these more mundane pages. Dennis Marks. Look, you're famous. I do own this, by the way. I just don't have time to go through my storage and try to find it. Right. This is beautifully colored, though. I like this a lot, actually. These are very, very phallic. I noticed it before and didn't mention it, but I'm wondering if it's an accident or not. There was 3 in one shot earlier. I'm sure some people noticed it. There's 3 right here, too. But they look like mushrooms more. Sort of. This is cool right here. There's a fungus among us. That is really, really neat. Yeah, people were saying that Kelley does do interviews and stuff like that, so there's at least a possibility that we might be able to give us. Is this issue 1 or 2? This is 2. Open these. There's going to be 2 pages that we already saw, but... Oh, wait. Okay, cool. Yeah, we haven't seen these. Yeah, this will be cool. We'll finish the whole book. Why not? I'm having fun. I'm assuming that if you're still watching the video, you're having fun. This would be beautiful in black and white. It wouldn't be so... I could turn this grayscale. It's not going to fade out that well. There's a little too much value. Let me try. I can try and see what it will do. There's a little too much shading and stuff on this piece, I think, to really get it. But this is really some nice pen and ink stuff right here. This is really cool, too. Face gets a little distorted, but it's still actually very cool. But that's what I'm talking about with... You start plopping a lot of black on faces, they can get distorted. So this is an interesting thing, too, and I'll kind of point this out as someone who's getting, like, sort of taking their lumps drawing stuff. Like... So if you drew this and you were the artist and you weren't happy with this face, just as a for instance, it's really can be very, very difficult to work it out. And what I found is I toiled over this one face for about 4 hours, and it's fine. Like, the finished version of it looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But I don't think I ever would have been happy with it at the point. There was just a point where it was like, Kelsey even said to me, I sent it to him, and I said, does this look all right, or what is going on? He's like, you need to just let it go. And I was like, all right. It's like he goes, go fight another battle or something like that, and then you can come back to it or whatever. But I worked on it for another few hours and got it where the panel itself looks fine, but it wasn't what I had originally imagined. So it was just never going to get there. But it's just, it's one of those things you just kind of have to move on, and it's not like a fan looking at it is going to obsess on it like you know what I mean? Like this face. This might not have been exactly what he imagined. He might go, oh, God, the tongue and the lips and the nose is weird, and you keep trying to work it. It generally will just get further and further away from you, and especially if you start getting flustered, it makes it even tougher to sort of work it out. Man, he's really having to draw some difficult shots. This would be hard, too. He pulled a lot of black in it to try to salvage it, but yeah, this face is really, really unusual. But this sort of makes up for it because this is pretty clear, and you know what I mean. It gets the point across. Also, Deadman's head looks very, very cool, so you don't focus as much on this. This is really nice, and then this is cool too. You can kind of see him incorporating different techniques and styles, and I'm not 100% sure. Had he worked on Batman at this point? I think it was around the same time. You know what he would have probably, I think he worked on Batman, did this, and then went back to Batman. or maybe simultaneously did it, something along the lines of that. I don't know how fast he is. I mean, this is only 120 pages of art. This could have just been like a half a year's worth of work for him. It's possible. I don't really know. This is nice too, actually. This is really cool. Man, that is so awesome. Deadman actually looks like a very, very fun character to draw. Somewhat forgiving in his weirdness. He's almost like Plastic Man in a way. He seems very malleable. This is a beautiful, beautiful panel up here. Man, that is great. I like that a lot. Yeah, this ended up being very, very fun. I'm glad that we're coming back to Kelley Jones. If you enjoy Kelley's work, I'll have links in the description box where you can follow him. And also, I'm nearly sure if you search my channel, you can find at least 1 or 2 other Kelley Jones videos that I've done. So check him out and enjoy the work, because he's that damn good. It's very, what, Texas Chainsaw Massacre? This is pretty good. I actually kind of like this. It's like, it definitely sells what he's sizzling. Man, that's cool. Wow, look at that. Man, that's crazy. Some wild anatomy. And it's interesting, too, I'll point this out, because, so, if you draw and you learn to draw and you work on anatomy as hard as most professional artists do, you become a little desensitized to things like nudity and whatnot, and it's not a big deal. It's human anatomy, and, you know, sometimes at the surface level, you'll admire something on a figure, and someone who is looking at it more superficially might just see, oh man, bare breasts or a penis or whatever it is. The unmentionables. It's like, dude, artists are almost like doctors that just don't, you know, work on the human body. But, I mean, it's just, you have to study the figure. And generally, at some point, you're going to look at it nude. And you're going to look at things like the torque of the hips and how clothes sit on the body and whatnot. And it's like, I always use the example of, I had an anatomy book one day out at Wildstorm, and I was working on some part of the leg or something like that, and it was these it's a really good anatomy book. I've talked about it before. It's got a guy like squatting on the cover, like a black guy who's really ripped, sort of a profile, and beautiful illustrations in it, great photography, but I mean, it's got very, very naked people in it. And someone came in, they're like, what are you looking at? And I'm like, oh my, I didn't even notice. I was just like, it's like focused on like a thigh or something like that, and it didn't even occur to me that someone else might see other things or focus on that first, you know. So it is what it is, yo. It's like, there's a level of maturity that you have to have as an artist, but then also a level of immaturity. You know, it's fun. We're doing comic books. It should be fantastical. She knows. Look at her head. That's not a serious face. That's really interesting, because I'm assuming that she does have a distorted face, but that seems very extreme compared to even this. Like, that's not the same proportion. I mean, just from her forehead to her chin is tremendously long. Like, this face would be more like this. Even more. It would be like that long. It's her neck is like this. So it's 1, 2, like 4 of her neck. So this would be, oh yeah, I mean, her head would be all the way up here. If it was the same as that, unless it can morph. I don't know what's going on. This is really cool though. Man, that is awesome. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful lighting on that. Gosh. Oh man, that's nice too. This is really cool. It's wow, man, that is really, really nice. What a great sequence, man. These pages are great. You know what? I'll be honest. Cause people ask me sometimes, do I collect original art? And I generally don't. I have some art that I've collected, but broadly speaking, I don't really collect original art. I wouldn't mind owning some Kelley Jones pages. I actually think it's interesting enough that it would be actually pretty fun to have a couple of nice ones. I feel that way about Mignola too. When I get a little bit of mad money one day, I'm gonna buy myself a few nice Mignola pieces. I am. If Blaster Kid does well, I might treat myself to something as a reward. I'm gonna get a guitar too. That's my stretch goal. Stretch goal for myself is like nothing crazy expensive though for the guitar, but just as a memento and memory of it. Maybe I'll name the guitar Blaster Kid. I don't normally name my instruments. I have two, I think, that have names. One's called Stormbringer. For guitar nerds, it's a black Les Paul custom with 3 pickups. It's a Japanese. It's a Greco. But yeah, it looks like Jimmy Page's Black Beauty. It's got 3 gold pickups. Really, really kick-ass guitar. It's like 80s Fuji Gen Japanese Les Paul. But they're not very expensive. Look, he said Coxman. See? You can be mature and immature at the same time. It's alright. No one gets hurt with a good Coxman joke. Alright, this looks nice too. I saw these when they were opening. This is beautiful. I love stuff like this, black with the thing. In fact, I actually followed Roger Dean. I mentioned on Twitter how great Roger Dean is. He's the Yes album cover artist. He did these drawings. They're like mushroom houses, but they have snakeskin looking painted like tiles on them. They're really interesting. He just uploaded them to Facebook. If you follow him there, it's like the Roger Dean official. They're really interesting. I've never seen anything like it. They look a little like Mobius art. They're very cool, very stylish. But I was like, man, that looks fun, and the colors are great. And the drawings are just very, very Mobius. If you don't know Roger's work, you'll feel that way. It's like the 70s psychedelia sort of art. This is nice too, man. Really, really great layout for this. Man, that's awesome. It was interesting too. Kelsey and I were talking about the we call them jobber jobs, but when you have to do work like this, panels, train on a track with another train, and I did that Todd McFarlane video on how do you make something that maybe is a mundane scene interesting. Like how do you do an office scene and make it fun? How do you show a train that's just sitting in farmland, make it look interesting? Like, what's the shots? How can you make it easier on yourself if you don't want to have to draw every single thing? How can you suggest that a train has broke down here without drawing it all? Maybe it's like you just see the tail end of it and the caboose. This is a little small for a train, but you get what I'm saying. Is like, and then maybe the conductor guy is sort of here trying to fix something, or, who knows. Sorry, that got away from me, the mouse. Anyway, but yeah, you put it in the scene, but you didn't have to draw it all. That's a good day. That's a good problem solving thing. Yeah, this is really cool. Oh man, it's interesting because I keep getting shades of Frazetta, and Bernie Wrightson. It's like it's probably just insane. This even has a little bit of a Jeffrey Catherine Jones vibe to it. And in fact, I'll mention again, Kelsey and I are doing Jeffrey Catherine Jones Wednesday live, so we're gonna do a spotlight on her work. For years I referred to him as a him, but it's like even Wrightson, if you see interviews with Wrightson, he's talking about Jeffrey, he will generally refer to him as a male. But out of respect, we're going to try to keep it female, so there'll be slip-ups. But I was a fan of his work, her work, and actually emailed her in the early 2000s, and she wrote back. It was very, very cool. I was so excited, and quickly too. It was one random night. I was on the website, and there was a lot of radio silence, and people were trying to get commissions from her, and she was going through a real tough time, and I just reached out and said, "Hey, I love your work. It's so amazing," and he had a pretty decent like little website up, and it hadn't been updated in forever though, and it felt very dead and kind of abandoned. And man, I'll tell you what, I sent an email probably at like 11 o'clock at night, and maybe like 10 minutes later, he wrote back, and I was like, wow, very very cool. It's actually one of my most cherished internet memories. This is a great page. I love the bones sticking out of the arms here. It's really, really cool. Yeah, this is fantastic. Really cool. Da-na-na-na. So, less phallic mushrooms. Thank you, Kelley. Thank you. Oh, man, that's cool. Oh gosh, look at that. Yeah, see, there's definitely some Frazetta going on. There's that really famous store, like it's a black and white pen and ink comic book story that Frank did, and he's got a tiger that's kind of sitting just like that almost. It's fun when you see little things like that, because I'm sure that that was an influence or inspiration for that shot. And if it wasn't, then it was like he channeled it from just memory. Fortunes Told. That's actually kind of a cool name. Still trying to decide on a publishing name for my comics. Okay, that's the poster again. Okay, are we done? Oh, we're done. All right, have a great Halloween. I hope everyone stays safe and has a fun evening. And I will be back tomorrow with Super Fun Sunday. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do, so if you want to put some recommendations in the comment box, please do, and I will seriously consider any of them. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.